infertility is not the end itself. Infertility is a symptom of another problem. So if you want to try IVF, you need to ask, for what reason? Because whatever might be the reason for which you are going into the IVF, we need to establish what exactly you're doing. Is it therapeutic or manipulative? So, like, it's the case that, like I said, infertility is a symptom of another problem. So the thing with IVF is this: it is not a treatment for infertility. Why? Because after every successful IVF session, the couples are still infertile. You have not changed anything about the infertility. You have only bypassed it. So that's why I said we need to ask, is it therapeutic or substitutive? Are you substituting something or you're actually treating something? So it's not a response to infertility or whatever reason that might be the case in particular instances. Now, we also need to talk about the fact that it could be a slippery slope. Don't forget what we are talking about here are the big deals. It could also be a slippery slope because it's not everyone who goes for IVF that are doing it just for the sake of infertility. Some people there's something called the eugenic movement. So some people just prefer a certain kind of person. So, okay, I want my child to be tall. I want my child to have this or have a particular IQ. So for instance, those who do the heterologous, those who go to the sperm bank, they actually want to know who the sperm belong to. So for instance, if you get the sperm from a basketball player, the very tall one, okay, you'll say, okay, so I prefer that one because I want my child to be tall. Or maybe the person is renowned for whatever discovery, so I go for that person's sperm in order to get, I just hope you get the point. All of these very flimsy excuses, so that's why I call it a slippery slope, because then we are manipulating the human life for reasons that are not exactly worth it, as I would like to see it. And then, of course, we also need to talk about the fact that it could be used for research. During this pandemic, for instance, and the news came out that a few scientists were trying to use the embryo for research, to work on some kind of medication or vaccine for the COVID. These are the kind of things I'm referring to. They become slippery slopes. Why? Because they feel it is technologically possible. So we can as well go ahead. But like I've said, that something is technologically possible doesn't make it morally admissible. I think we also need to talk about what eventually happens to the frozen embryos. And by frozen, I mean, you remember what I said about the way it is done. So you get the two gametes, the sperm, the egg, you take it to the petri dish, then you fertilize. Of course, most times you are not fertilizing just one. So you are fertilizing multiple. So you insert just one. The next question will be, what happens with the rest? So after the embryo transfer, there is a likelihood that you are going to freeze the remaining ones or use the remaining ones for research. We are talking about human life. We are talking about human beings. So these are big deals. And then, as it has become the case, this is not exactly very common now, but there have been a few cases of children who were born from IVF who are beginning to have serious psychological trauma after they got to know how they were, in quotes, produced. Now, before I even go on, I know listening to me now, it will look like, oh, this insensitive fellow is talking about, does he even understand how difficult it is to be childless and all of that? I'm a Nigerian, and I understand from an Afro-Nigerian context what it means to be childless. I understand how difficult this is for families. I understand how difficult this is for couples. But seeking a solution to a problem should be precisely that, a solution, not a bypass. And what I mean by that is there are alternatives to IVF that actually work better than IVF and are not immoral. There will be another video on that. So we'll talk about the NAPRO technology, we'll talk about the fertility education management, we'll talk about the low tubal ovarian transfer. There are a host of others, and they work well, especially the NAPRO technology for full, and there will be another video on that. So I need us to understand that the immorality of IVF is not premised on the insensitivity of the person talking about it. All that needs to be done is to understand the nitty-gritty, what really goes on. You know, when you say, okay, I want to have a child, and then you go to the fertility doctor, all that happens is, okay, you know what, let's get your sperm, let's get your egg, I'm not sure a number of persons actually pay a lot of attention to what goes on. Ask anyone you might know who has gone through this. You hardly find anyone who went through an IVF session and was successful the first time. There are usually multiple times. I know people have tried it 11 times before they got it. Have you talked about the many injections you have to take? Have you talked about the many psychological trauma of whether or not it fails? Have you talked about the fact that it is expensive? Have you talked about the host of other things? So, at this point, it's important that we begin to have these discussions that it is not everything that is technologically possible that is necessarily morally admissible. And at this point, I would encourage us to stay tuned to Moments with Padre Joe. Thank you for always being there, by the way. But the discussion continues on IVF, and the next time we'll be looking into further details of what really goes on and every other discussion around this. So please stay tuned. It is Moment with Padre Joe. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to turn on your notification bells. And more importantly, share the link and let's get this discussion going on.